I'm going to start with Helen first. I'm going to have each of them just introduce themselves again and tell us their major. If you could do that.
I'm Ray. My major is psychology.
I'm Helen, and my major is youth ministry.
I'm RC, and my major is criminal justice.
I'm Brandon, and I'm majoring in transformational leadership.
And then these are the two questions that I've asked them to answer today. And so I'm just going to let them do. I'm going to start with Helen, though. Tell us a little bit about your story before coming to Barclay. And then just how has the work of the Father, Son, or Spirit or the Barclay community helped transform you since you've been here?
So I heard about Barclay from like my pastors, because I go to the eastern region. So I grew up knowing Malone before Barclay. So then I felt God calling me here, and I came. And then I was here for a week and a half and got really homesick. And then there was some stuff going on at home that I didn't want to be far from home. So I went home. I was here. I didn't give Barclay a chance. I was just here. I didn't talk to anybody. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go home. So I called my mom, and I was like, hey, I want to go home. And it was the first time I was like, because I live in New York, so it was the first time I was far away from home. And my mom's like, okay, I bought your ticket already. You can come home. So I left. And when I left, in the airport, God kept telling me that I wasn't supposed to go home, that I was supposed to stay here. And I didn't listen. And the whole time I was flying back home, he kept telling me I had a chance to change my flight and come back, and I still refused. And he was like, I'm trying to save you from something at home, but also your calling is to be here. And I went home for the year, and the pandemic happened. A lot of stuff happened at home that wasn't as great. And so at the end of that, God still put in my heart, are you ready to go back to Barclay yet? And I was like, I guess so. So I decided I was going to come back, and then I convinced Kayla to come with me. So I wasn't alone. And then we both came 3 years now, 3 years ago now. And so I feel like being at Barclay, it's helped me be mature in my faith and kind of grow my own faith, not have my parents' faith, like be my own person in God and really see his calling for me and really be able to see where he wants me to go. And it's just the community here, and having that support that isn't family is really, like, it's really been helpful.
So some of you might be surprised to know that I'm not a teacher. I'm actually a student. And yes, I'm old. So I didn't grow up in the church. My dad's side of the family was Jehovah's Witness. My mom's side of the family was Christian. And I thought they were all crazy. And so I just was an atheist my whole life. And unfortunately, that led me down a pretty dark path. I ended up becoming a drug addict. And I'm proud to say I got 22 months sober today. But so I was in a super dark place, which was jail, and I had never prayed before, and I just prayed to God, and I honestly to this day don't know why, because I didn't believe in him or the devil either. Anyway, so I prayed something, and it actually got answered like right in front of me, and so I got out of jail the next day, and I got baptized about 2 weeks later. And so then I followed Christ, and I was going to church 3 times a week, just doing all the things godly. And I was taking care of my dad, who was dying of liver failure, and he passed away, and I backslid. I went back to drugs. And about 3 months later, I checked myself into rehab, and I completed that. I got out, and my pastor, who's from Rock Springs, I'm from Wyoming, for those of you who don't know, he said, well, hey, what do you think about going to a Christian college? And I was like, all right, I'll check it out. So I came down here and checked out Barclay, and it was really cool. And I got home, and I had a bunch of stuff I had to do, like I had to get off probation, I had to get money, I had to buy a car, all these different things. And a lady from my church gave me an anonymous gift of $10,000 to get my life together so that I could come to Barclay. I bought a car, I packed up everything that would fit into that car, and I moved here not knowing nobody. And I've been here this is starting my second year, so that's my story, and God's good all the time.
All right, so I'm also old. So my life before Barclay, I grew up in the church my whole life. I've pretty much been going to church since I came out of the womb. So, but yeah, I was a huge baseball guy, all the way through high school. I never went to church camp in the summers because that would mean I'd miss like 4 baseball games, so I couldn't do that. Quit Boy Scouts, everything, just so I focus on baseball. At the end of high school, I didn't know what exactly I was doing. Ended up signing a letter of intent to play college baseball, which was a dream. But that summer, Jeannie and Jared, who I've known since I was 18 months old, something like that, for forever. They were our neighbors when Jared was going to friends. They came out and visited because they couldn't come to my high school graduation. And they were like, "You should come check out Barclay." And I was like, "Barclay doesn't have baseball. Why would I go to Barclay?" And so my parents kept bugging me a little bit about visiting, and they kept bugging me a little bit. And I was like, "Fine, I'll visit." Like a week before school started, came out for a visit. The first professor that I met, other than Jeannie and Jared, was Dave Kingery. So that was, kind of influential. And the first student I met was Jeremiah Williams, who none of you guys probably know. But that was also influential, and it was one of those things. I stepped on campus, and I was kind of like, oh, I guess I'm not playing college baseball. I guess I'll switch to soccer and run 6 miles every day. So yeah, and going to Barclay, it helped. If I didn't come to Barclay, I'd be a completely different person of who I was. If you guys don't know, kind of like, well, baseball players have a lot of fun. I'll just leave it at that. So, because I came here, I didn't have to deal with temptations that come along. With that, I also created lifelong friends. Tanner Holiday being one of them, and you walk through people through all different stages of life. So yeah, and then I decided to come back here and work because I believe in what Barclay's mission is, and it can change people's lives forever. So.
Okay, so like some of them, I grew up in church for who knows how long. And then, first off, I was looking for colleges that were tuition free. So just Googled something, and Barclay was first and popped up. So I clicked it. Coming here wasn't out for me. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional. But it was not that home was bad in a sense, but my parents are very, very traditional, and the organization that we were a part of was very brainwashing. So I just needed an escape route. So coming here, and I visited school in 2015. I was a sophomore in college. I'm in high school. So I was really serious about getting out of where I thought I was comfortable. And amongst leaving home, was leaving a lot of things behind that I thought were good for me. Barclay has changed who I've become in tremendous ways. I don't know. I'm glad that I chose to come to to start over.
Thank you. Thank you for your honesty and just being here. So, yeah, you guys can go down. Thanks. Yeah. I know you obviously have already picked up on this when you listen to the four of them, that nobody's story is the same. But I'm reminding you again that we are a part of God's story, and He uses all of us. We know where we come from. I'm reminded over and over again when I think about Jesus as He began His ministry on earth and as He began to call different disciples to come. And some of the people that I'm reminded that He called or He gave an invitation to, we don't usually use the word called in our culture, but he invited them to come be a part of His story. And it was really before they even knew what they were getting into, or it was really even before they knew who He was. And so I'm reminded that He called Simon the Zealot, which meaning that most of you would know Simon as Peter. And meaning that he was a zealot would be that he was someone who was openly like against the government. He would be anti-government. He called Matthew the tax collector, which Matthew would have been like the lowest of the lowest in the Roman culture. That he was somebody who wouldn't have been fair in his trading. Probably people didn't like him because he worked for the Roman government. And then he called James and John, which later we know John to be known as the disciple or the beloved, but we also know that James and John were brothers who had a lot of pride. They asked if they could be at the right and the left hand of Jesus. And then obviously you know that Jesus called Judas, and that was even, if Jesus was a part of God the Father and the Spirit and them knowing all things, that he knew that Judas would later betray him, but He still gave him an invitation and He called him. I don't know if you remember on Tuesday this past week when Dan was talking, he had all of his signs out here, and he held up one that said Jesus, and he made a comment about how when he was growing up, people would just say to him, well, Jesus is the answer, but they wouldn't really give him more than that. And so that's the invitation that we're giving to you here at Barclay, is we're not just saying, hey, Jesus is the answer. We're trying to figure out how to walk through life with you while you're trying to figure out what are the questions and what is this about the life of Jesus that helps us respond to the things around us. I'm going to have Casey put up the theme for the year. I just want to remind you of that. It's the Greek word, which is allelon, which means one another. You find it over 50 times in the New Testament. And we're especially going to be focusing on like the one another that has to do with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit with us. And I know I keep returning to this, but this auditorium that we have is used for a lot of different things. Just this past week, Monday and Tuesday, it was used for auditions for the fall play, and there was dancing happening on this stage. Or I know some of you are in new student orientation, or if we have all school meetings, this space is used for that. But I wanted you to know that every Tuesday morning, there's a group of people who are gathering in here. There's students and their faculty and staff at 8:30 who come and pray over this place specifically for our time together on Tuesday and Thursday, that this would become a holy and sacred place as we spend time worshiping together. And if you want to be a part of that, you could talk to Helen. You want to raise your hand? Helen can tell you more about that. And so just today, as we are gathered, here's where I want to kind of end with the stories we've heard. The invitation that we want to offer to you every Tuesday and Thursday when we're in here is, how can I be a part of God's story? How is God inviting me to be a part of His story? On the first day that we were in here this year, I asked you to think about what is a place to you that's sacred or holy. What is maybe a church that you've been at or a place? And I'm going to invite you again to go back to that. When I ask you to think about a place that seems sacred or holy to you, what is that place? And I'm going to have Casey put up a next picture here. So this is an old picture. I actually remember this picture being in my grandparents' house. And the title of this picture is called The Presence in the Midst. And this would be like from the Friends tradition or the Quaker tradition. That's why they're wearing the garb that they were wearing, is they were trying to be plain and simple. But if you notice in the back, there's a figure, and it's the presence of Jesus with them in that place. Just reminding you today that Jesus tells us, in Matthew 18, he's talking to the disciples about praying, and that when 2 or 3 come together and pray for anything in his name, that he's there and he answers that. And then he makes a step further where he says, when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there with them. And so that's the invitation that we're giving to you each time we gather in those places. When 2 or 3, and there's more than 2 or 3 in here today, that every time we gather, that Jesus already has told us that he will be here with us. He will be here in our midst. And so Jared actually pointed this out to me this morning, and I didn't know this. What is it that you can do to make this place sacred to you as you enter on Tuesday and Thursdays? And I don't want you to think that sacred means I have to be quiet. That's a misnomer. Sacred can mean a lot of different things. But Jared asked me, he goes, where'd you get that rosary? And I didn't even know that this is. Maybe those of you from the Catholic tradition might know this. To me, it's not just an accessory. I don't want to just say that. But a lot of times for me, when I'm up front speaking or in my position, I like to wear a necklace that's a cross, or I like to have a cross of some kind, because it reminds me of my purpose. It reminds me what I stand behind and who I am. And so I think that that's what the invitation I give to you today is, I know some of you come from traditions that when you enter into the place that you worship, you kneel, and some of you might cross yourself. Some of you might be a person that you have a tradition that you're used to coming in, there's music, or maybe you come and kneel first to pray, to prepare yourself for worship. But that's what I want to invite you into this year is, how will you prepare yourselves for worship, for this gathering where Jesus has already said that he will be with us every time that we are here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so that's what I invite you today. And maybe you don't even know the answer to that, but I want to ask you to think about that. How can I prepare myself every time that we come in here on Tuesdays and Thursdays to worship and glorify God, but also to be in community with one another? Allelon, one another. Allelon, one another. So that's just the question that I have for you, and I'm going to give you some time to think about it, and then say a prayer over us today. Lord, I pray for our Barclay family as we are a community of diverse and yet flawed people, just like the earliest disciples, and just like me. Forgive us, God, for our failings. May your family here at Barclay be known for their love and service. Help this place that we gather on Tuesdays and Thursdays to be sacred to you every time we meet. Amen. You're free to go, and I just encourage you, if you already know what it is you're going to do to make this place sacred, share it with a person as you're walking over to the cafeteria.